Oh God, guys. Everything I said was literally muted. I don't even know how long I've been muted. Jeez. All right. This is crazy. This technology stuff is crazy. Anyway, welcome to the show. I feel like it's probably been muted for 12 minutes. We've been having a lot of issues with StreamYard, y'all. But anyway, welcome to the show. I am Sonja, host of The Legal Score. Good thing is I wasn't really doing much but talking about the game last night. But for the sake of argument, for those who are still on here who may think they're having sound issues, it wasn't you, it was me. And now I get a chance to start everything over. So today's show, and my subsequent show will be dedicated to my uncle. His birthday's coming up next week. So welcome to my YouTube subscribers and happy heavenly birthday to my uncle Edward Walker. This is the reason why I do this show. And so just going back for a couple of minutes here. My first story started out with the 2025-26 Rookie of the Year battle. Now, this is the most competitive battle in decades, according to all the professional writers. And it is my exquisite joy to brag because it is two of my favorite players, Duke alumni, Duke family, basically. They were in the same draft class. Cooper Flagg and Con Knuppel. Just yesterday, April 3rd, Flagg made history by becoming the youngest player. Y'all know he's not even 20 yet. He's a teenager. He's the first teenager to actually drop 51 points in an NBA game, despite his three-point shooting being a work in progress because he's not the best three-point shooter, only 29%. His defensive versatility and rim pressure have him averaging 20.8 points per game and 6 rebounds per game. Con Knuppel, his friend, while Flagg has been the highlight person, Knuppel is the efficiency king. He's the one that's making the Hornets relevant right now. Went on a 10-game win streak and actually have us competitive for the first time in a very long time as a playoff threat. He's 50, 40, and 90, y'all, shattering rookie records everywhere with three-pointers being made and you name it. Now, most analysts are agreeing it's a coin flip between the both of them, but Flagg is the one that has that wow factor. Keeping it with the college theme for a little bit, Danny Fuller, I did not catch this last night. So the game between South Carolina and UConn ladies was wrapping up. And I saw the comments coming in, but I was kind of in the middle of addressing something else. Saw Danny's comment about Gino not shaking Coach Dawn Staley's hand. And then didn't see anything else except for the fact that South Carolina had upset UConn. Everybody and their mama had UConn winning it, except for those of us who knew that South Carolina was the real deal Holyfield. So by them not being able to run it back, South Carolina, in my opinion, is a clear contender for this title. That game is coming up really, really soon. It's going to be versus the UCLA Bruins for your ladies championship game. But before we even get there, this matchup. Now, it was reported yesterday during the game, like there's like only a few seconds left of the game, and it just appeared because I didn't see the whole game. I literally had to catch clips of it. Gino walks over to Coach Staley and says something, and she just goes to 12 real quick, like 0 to like to 100. And no one knew what was going on. So we just heard, repeated stuff, and then we kept hearing Dawn say, "I will beat Gino's, you know what." So yeah, what's up, Nathan? Hey, and oh yeah, happy. So because the first part of my show was muted because I had technical difficulties, let me tell you guys again, happy Resurrection Day for those of us who love Jesus, which is pretty much the whole world. But if not, for those of us who are Christians, we observe Christ's resurrection on tomorrow, and we are so grateful. So happy Holy Saturday and happy Resurrection Sunday on tomorrow. But for me, and most of us, we love Jesus every day. But make sure you guys have a way to commemorate him on tomorrow. All right. So anyway, back to what I was saying. apparently Dawn they have a press conference afterwards. Every game has a post game presser. And they asked Dawn what happened. She being the classy person she is, she's just like, no love lost. It is what it is. Let him tell you guys, because what he said is what started everything. So they asked him, what in the world happened? How did, Dawn get so hyped up? And she's like, he's like, well, before every game, they always have the coaches come and shake hands. And he was like, I waited on her at half court for 3 minutes. He didn't say she didn't show up. He just said he waited for her. Dawn is like, no, bro, like, I shook your hand. What are you talking about? So then they get into it after the fact. Gino is like, well, to be honest, Dawn's on the side cursing the refs XYZ. And then one of my players' jerseys is ripped. And then I asked the refs about it, and they're like, oh, yeah, we didn't see that. And so it looks as if, he's really mad for real, because he didn't see that L coming. That's what it really is. UConn was slated to run it back. And at the end of the day, they didn't. And it wasn't even a close game. They got beat the right way, the old-fashioned way. And so now UCLA will be facing South Carolina instead of UConn. But he was just really mad that he lost. Let's be what it is. I'm very happy for them. This is Coach Staley's 6th win in the last 8 matchups against Gino. He's livid. Gino did come out today, actually, after all the social media hype behind everything, and issued an apology for his behavior at the end of the game, and admitted that he spoiled the moment by reacting poorly toward the South Carolina staff. But what's crazy is he acted poorly, but none of his players and none of his staff treated Coach Staley or any of the South Carolina players any differently. All right. So anyway, kudos to them with that. And the Final Four game tonight is set, because I just remembered that part was muted as well. UConn versus Illinois tonight at 6:09. I don't want to give it that much interest because I'm still bitter about Duke being eliminated, but I already talked about it Wednesday and last night, and I'm done. It's just the way it happened. It's so horrific. But let's just say I've never rooted for Illinois, but I will tonight. So go Illinois and remove those Huskies. The winner of that game will be facing the Arizona-Michigan game, which will be following that first game at 8:54. Arizona's high-octane offense, scoring 109 by themselves in the Sweet 16, faces the disciplined Michigan squad that just dismantled Tennessee. So those games are going to be very interesting to come up. And March Madness is almost over. We are just a couple of weeks before the big NFL draft. But one team that was focusing on that number one position just put themselves in a, I think, comparable position to make sure that their draft prospect has at least a running start. I don't want to say the best start, but a running start. Fernando Mendoza is projected to go number 1 to the Raiders. And in that spirit, you know how hard it is to start a quarterback out of college. I always say it. First of all, the team they're going to is going to be the bottom of the barrel because they are the higher draft picks. And as a result, they're not going to be going to the best team. I really wish the NFL would mix it up like the NBA does and do lottery, like do a draft that you are casting lots to see who's going to get the draft pick. I don't think it's always fair that the teams that are ranked lower are the ones that are getting the higher draft picks. The reason why I say that is because we seem to see the same teams frequently in the top 5, top 7, at least top 10 slots. All they do is kind of pivot around here and there, but in the end, they're all there. Now, granted, a team can always switch out their, drafts for players or veteran players, what have you. Well, This person's agent, we talked about a little bit last night on Friday with the fellas, clearly has a slot in the Hall of Fame as the most decorated and accomplished agent in the league. And nobody ever says his name. That's the thing. I need to find out who his agent like really is. This person has now gotten another contract. It is none other than Kirk Cousins, and he is not your cousin. He is officially the $330 million man. His contract history is back in the spotlight. This time, the Raiders are bringing him in as a person to mentor Fernando Mendoza because they are predicted to get him. And it's funny, somebody put up a meme. They actually look alike, at least the way they have this picture done. Kirk Cousins got all that $180 million out of the Falcons. They still owe him about $8 million, and that's all they're paying. The Raiders are giving him a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever. But Kirk Cousins has officially passed $330 million in career earnings. He's clearly been able to leverage fully guaranteed contracts. That's the difference maker. And shorter term contracts, unlike almost any other player in league history, and not just in football, but everywhere. Let me give you guys a breakdown of Kirk's salary history. So I told you guys he's going to the Raiders. He just left the Falcons. Let me pull this clip up. He just left the Falcons, and I mean, he tells people, you like that? It's literally like, yeah, we do like that. Kirk started out with the Washington Commanders, $2,572,000, close to $573 for 4 years. Then he got $19 million again with them, another $23 million with them, and then he went over to Minnesota, and he got $84 million off the rip from the Vikings for 3 years. Then he got $66 million, and then he got another $35 million from Minnesota for another year. Then he went to Atlanta and got this $180 million contract with Atlanta, making him the first quarterback with that fully guaranteed amount ever. And now Las Vegas, at the end of the day, will be giving him $172 million. So just $8 million less than what Atlanta gave him. And Kirk only has one playoff win. No rings, but just one playoff win. Kirk Cousins clearly is the mastermind. And so his family have now relocated from Atlanta to the desert. So, I mean, can't be mad at him, I guess, right? But that's it. I'm super happy for him. Let's see. No other major NFL news going on right now. I will be delving over into my second segment of the show. That's going to be involving the legal side here. And it's a lot of things going on in this country right now. Unfortunately, we are at war. We are seeing planes with a lot of technical issues because of the government shutdown, impartial inspections by TSA agents, incomplete inspections by TSA agents as well. Tyler Perry came over to the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta and was trying to hand the workers like $2,000 a piece because they had not gotten a check in 40 days. And then there's a clause somewhere that they can't accept money from anybody. So then he went back and got gift cards and gave them to them. And then now they're trying to say they can't accept the gift cards. But apparently there's a concession that's been made that TSA have started receiving their checks, or they will within the next couple of days, for that back pay plus. Can you imagine being a TSA agent and having like major bills? And I don't know how creditors are looking at this. If they know, that their client, their customer is a TSA agent and they have a mortgage and they're like, hey, I'm not able to pay this right now. As you know, the government's shut down. I don't know if they made a concession like during the pandemic. I remember getting a letter at the time I was having my truck financed, and they were literally saying, we know a lot of people are going through a lot of financial strain because of the pandemic. So therefore, if you're interested, we're willing to, I think they waived 6 months of your payment. And then they were like, but it will be tacked on, at the end of your loan or what have you. And to not have a car payment for 6 months, I was like, yes. At the time I was working in the courts, we were on a hybrid schedule, but I was blessed to not miss a paycheck. But I called them and asked them if it was okay for me to still, apply, even though I was still getting paid. And they told me yes, and I did. And so that was that. But can you imagine all the turmoil that is going on right now? There's been a flight that I think it was Delta that flames were coming out of it. Engine fell like right off the takeoff. There's been a lot of unruly passengers. And it just seems to be a time that, everybody records everything. And I just have not seen an ounce of compassion anywhere. And because this is the legal score, and I get a chance to express my opinions because I'm not an attorney. And even when I become an attorney, which hopefully I will in the next couple of years when I sit for the bar, I still feel like I should be able to express my opinions. They're not disrespectful. They're my opinions. They're facts that I use to back up my opinion. But this is the most chaotic I've ever seen our country. They always talk about a team, a family, whatever is always as strong as its leader. And so our country is led by the White House. And because there's so much turmoil going on right now there, it's a domino effect. It's trickling down to everybody. So this holiday season, this holiday weekend, I'm remembering that helicopter that has gone down over in Iran. They did find one of the pilots is okay. And it's just a lot of stuff going on with that. But congratulations to the Artemis spacecraft. Shout out to my frat brother Victor. They are making a trip around the moon. They were saying people that flew to Puerto Rico a couple of days ago had a bird's eye view from the sky because they saw the spaceship literally fly right past them. So what I'll do, guys, is I'm going to take a quick break and I'll come back. We'll talk a little bit of MLB and then we'll talk about that legal stuff that you guys been waiting to hear. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the legal score. I am here with the second half. Thank you guys for coming in today. Come in and say hello if you haven't already. I see you watching. I know some people are just like, well, I'm on my phone. I don't, type a lot of comments or what have you. But anyway, happy Easter weekend to you. Some MLB stuff going on right now, guys. So, this was opening week, what have you. But a lot of teams, are looking solid. There's a lot of people breaking records already, bases and stuff stolen and all of that good stuff. But it's early in the season. We have lots of games to be played. And so y'all know how I always like to say the verdict is still out. The verdict really is still out. All right. So guys, let's hop over to this legal news real quick. Let me make sure I don't have anything missing. Oh, well, hold on. Let me do a plug real quick for the MLB. I will do that. Um, I want to know what team you guys think is actually on track to win. Now, there's a pitching injury crisis. New data for this season is already showing that a lot of pitchers in MLB are having elbow surgeries at an all-time high. I don't know. I mean, the balls are actually faster. You see people, everybody wants their speed to be like close to 100. And at some point, the body just takes that type of taxation. So that's going to be interesting to follow up on. Shohei Ohtani, home run pace actually through the first 7 games of theirs. And it's just been a lot of good sports going on across the board. This is the time where all the sports come together. All right, let's talk about this legal news. All right. So there's 2 stories I'm going to cover today. One is, and I guess I'll get to that one first, the use of AI in courtrooms. Unfortunately, AI is everywhere. People think it's productive, useful, et cetera, et cetera. I think in the right scenarios, it would be or could be, but I just would not trust a robotic production of anything without some type of human, balancing, human corroboration of whatever was discovered. Alarmingly, there have been several instances, one right here in Georgia, that attorneys have been using AI, ChatGPT, to compose documents that represent their client. And it's baffling to me because you spend so much money going into law school. You spend so much time, so much effort. As most of you know, I'm in law school, so I can speak that wholeheartedly. It takes a lot of mental stamina. It takes a lot of physical stamina. It takes a lot of everything, discipline. I mean, it's overwhelming, but it's such a beautiful place to be and a blessing to be there because there's so many people that I'm sure want to be attorneys, but they cannot get past the entrance exam. The LSAT is extremely difficult. At least it was for me. And in our country, even though in certain cities you may see a lot of brown, Black and brown people, African Americans, Hispanic, in the legal community, there are only a total of 5% of minorities. When I say that, I mean not like ethnicities. I'm saying like African American men and women that are attorneys. In fact, there's only 2% women nationwide and 3% men nationwide. And so you come in with a sense of urgency of like kind of having everybody on your back, like you're holding up your entire race. I mean, for lack of a better word, because you know how hard you work to get where you are, and it never stops. Being an attorney is always supposed to be a position of servitude. It's not supposed to be, and I guess it's with anything. If you have a job and you're making a lot of money, I guess you're gonna flourish, you're gonna flaunt it, whatever. But it's a position of service because you are never to assert your own opinion on anything. You are always supposed to check everything against the law, no matter what it is, even when your personal opinion possibly conflicts with it. And to know that just the time and the effort and it's not about being intelligent, being in law school. It's just about being able to be analytical in a way like never before. And so when attorneys go through law school, and especially those who pass the bar on the first time, I applaud those because the bar is difficult. And then to get in your career 5, 10, 15 years, and you are representing your company or representing your agency, because in this specific situation, there's a prosecutor. There's a case that was on appeal for the Georgia Court of Appeals, and it's in Clayton County, Georgia. And the prosecutor, they live stream these things. They actually had a appellant because this young lady she did. They have video and everything. There was a gentleman that ran into someone, decided he was going to flee the scene. I'm just giving you guys a backstory of how we get to where we are. There was a gentleman that was African American here in the metro Atlanta area. He had an accident and he was fleeing the scene. He was an older gentleman. And she was just like, I'm going to be super saver. You know what? She already had her dash cam running and everything. She's not law enforcement, not anything. So she calls 911 and she's like, hey, this guy just crashed into these people, but I'm gonna run him down and get his tag. The 911 operator is saying, did you get a tag? She's saying, no, but I can get it. They're saying, we don't recommend you to do anything risky to get this tag. Let law enforcement handle it, basically, in so many words. She's like, no, I'm going to leave the scene. I'll come back and meet with the officers later. I'm going to go down. And so she is flying down behind this guy. Whatever happens, people are surmising that he actually had a medical situation that caused the first crash. And he possibly didn't even realize that he had actually hit someone. But she not only, I'm thinking, the story is going to say, okay, she causes him to have another accident. Oh, no. She chases him down with her car. They get into an argument and she shoots him and takes his life. So anyway, the jury found her guilty of that because she was warned repeatedly not to pursue this man. And even in pursuing, you just went literally like cop mode on him. And to shoot him had nothing to do with anything. Her, she wasn't threatened, none of that. And so anyway, that case is now on appeal because they were trying to say some of the jurors were not prompted in the closing arguments. They were not instructed is the proper way to say it. There's jury instructions at the end of a trial that the judge actually gives the instructions, and one error in the instructions can overturn a sentence. And so the defense was arguing, there was this specific instruction that they didn't know, the jurors didn't realize they could have. And so they just found her guilty of a higher charge when they really could have found her guilty of something lesser. So the prosecutor in Clayton County gets this motion for new trial, gets this motion to set aside. She drafts up this, motion to deny the motion for new trial. She uses these cases and they rule against her and they rule in favor of the defendant. So now the defendant gets this new trial, but then again, it goes to the Court of Appeals because that's systemically the way that it follows. Like you don't get something on one level, you go out. The Court of Appeals is the highest court that you can appeal to in Georgia and in most states. So during the finale of her presentation, the prosecutor's presentation, one of the appellate judges literally is like, okay, so basically there are 5 cases in this brief that simply don't exist. He didn't even sugarcoat it. He didn't say, we can't find them. We don't know what they tied to. He just said, look, they don't exist. They're not real cases. He said, on top of that, there's 3 other citations that are not the real citations to the cases that were listed. And then he's like, did you actually, were these cases still in the original motion that your office filed? So she's like, let me get back with you on that. Well, yesterday, probably, or maybe the day before, I just saw it on today's news. The main prosecutor for Clayton County's district attorney's office had written a letter to the Court of Appeals apologizing for this and stated that she never thought that she would have to write a letter of apology to the Court of Appeals for something of this magnitude. So, in other words, now this defendant, the issue doesn't become anymore, okay, she gets a new trial because the jurors were improperly instructed. She now possibly can get a new trial because the cases that, the cases that the prosecutor used were not real cases. And no one took the time on the state court level and superior court before it got to the Court of Appeals to even check those briefs. And I know a lot of attorneys get paralegals or legal assistants to draft things. I know. I was a paralegal before I started law school. But you have to go back and check this work. If your name and your bar number are on a document, the court doesn't care who drafted it. They don't care if the janitor in the courtroom drafted this document. If you signed it and your bar number's on there, you and you alone are responsible for the integrity of this document. And that's not the first case I've heard of. I just wanted to put it out there because it's just becoming so prevalent. I've heard about it in other states. I've heard at least 2 or 3 people in Georgia. And it just, I don't know. So, word to the wise, even people that are not practicing law, don't rely on ChatGPT to be your end all be all for anything you're composing to submit anywhere, because it will look good, it will appear, sound, and then on the surface it looks amazing, but once you start digging, you know how it is. When you start digging on the dirt, can look nice and smooth outside. The grass is pretty, it's a flat, even level, it's like your yard. Once you start digging, everything becomes ugly and messy. So just don't do it. Don't do it. This next case, excuse me, is going to be of interest to y'all. Now, this is out of the state of California. There was a hospice center in California. Federal authorities actually arrested a married couple, Amalu and Gladwin Gill, along with 13 other people, including nurses, a chiropractor, and a psychologist, for a scheme that billed Medicare $7.45 million. This hospice actually triggered this investigation because they reported a staggering 97% recovery/survival rate over the last 5 years for patients that were supposed to be in hospice. I don't know about y'all, but I've had relatives and friends in hospice. And when you go to hospice, palliative care, things like that, it is end of life quality. Every now and then you probably do have that miracle, but 97% of your patients recovered is astronomically unimaginable. And that is literally the stupidest crime I probably have ever heard of in a long time. The reality is hospice care is specifically for terminally ill people that have 6 months or less to live. And it's just illegitimate to think that 97% of people could recover from this specific facility. These defendants allegedly recruited patients who were not actually sick. They paid these patients $300 a month to pose as hospice patients. And this allowed the medical facility to bill Medicare for expensive end-of-life treatments that were not necessary, and they were never provided to anybody. This is a bust of a larger crackdown involving the feds, because another facility in California, this time Artesia, California, was cited for an 85% non-death discharge rate. The national average is significantly lower, like 10, 20%, way, way lower. Federal officials, including those overseen by Dr. Mehmet Oz, are using those arrests to highlight systemic vulnerabilities in the Medicare system, particularly in California, where hospice meals have become a major investigative priority. So, for those of you who are not aware, this specific hospice facility was St. Francis Palliative Care. And like I said, the national average of a live discharge for hospice is I said 10%. It's actually roughly between 15 and 20%. And usually, due to the patient's health stabilizing or them just choosing to leave. So it doesn't always mean that they're well when they leave. They may choose to go home, to spend their last days. But automatically a red flag. The FBI executed a high profile raid in a quiet residential neighborhood in San Dimas, California. Gill is 70 years old, a registered nurse, and her husband, 66 psychologist, Gladwin Gill, they got taken into custody in their home. There's an indictment from the feds. It includes 3 nurses, the chiropractor I mentioned, and a psychologist. One of the defendants under the recidivist, let me explain what that is. Recidivist is usually when you've already committed a felony, and if you do something again of equal or greater magnitude, you are now on a recidivist, and a lot of states will use your, so all states look at your prior criminal history, but under recidivist, usually they magnify the time you are facing with your new case in custody in prison because you are now a second offender with a felony, a very serious offense. One defendant, you guys, Nita Almuete Padit Palma, was actually orchestrating her part of the fraud from a federal prison in Seattle, where she's already serving time for, you guessed it, previous healthcare fraud. So they got this lady, they giving her money on her books and everything just for her to run another scheme, and now she's caught again. Another note, okay, just like I told you guys about not using Chat GPT for everything, who would consult a prisoner that is already convicted of the same thing you're trying to do, of being the expert ringleader of what you're trying to do? Now, don't get me wrong. Some people, probably go to prison and they study their craft with other prisoners and they put their heads together and they get it right. But in this case, this just gets worse and worse. So basically, this scheme relied on 3 major pillars of illegal activity. First were these recruitment kickbacks I told you guys about. The Gills and others actually paid marketers to go out and find healthy senior citizens, people that were older, but they were healthy. And they were recruiting them in grocery stores, or they would knock on their doors and, they would promise them these monthly stipends, just $300. That is not a lot, especially in California. In cash, they gave them that just to sign up, and then they continued the stipends as these people lived in their facility. I guess it's like, you live in our facility, you don't have to pay rent, electricity, none of that stuff, and we give you $300 and we still feed you. I still don't get it. Not only that, guys, to justify this billing with Medicare, the nurses and doctors involved would falsify medical records, add fake symptoms of terminal illnesses like end of life stage type heart failure or cancer to files of people who were actually walking, talking, and healthy. And I mean, like, not even using wheelchairs or anything like that. They were 1000% healthy for their age, but they moved about with no issue. Medicare was billed for expensive, durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, hospital beds, and 24/7 nursing care that was never actually provided. So they would like order out, say they needed this money for this equipment. They were not buying these beds and stuff in there. They had regular stuff. So the DOJ, now Department of Justice, is like, you guys are not only fraudulently defrauding Medicare, but you're money laundering. Where is the money? They're not just looking for the event that will happen. They're like, where's the money? The Guilds alone billed Medicare for $5.2 million, while the entire group as a whole, y'all, $50 million in false claims. No one's getting out of jail. And with the husband and wife being in their late 60s, early 70s, that is life for them. Prosecutors are alleging that the Gills laundered the money through their hospice business to pay for international flights, high-end dining, and their own home mortgage, just living it up. 15 defendants total face various counts of conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, kickback statute violation of California, and aggravated identity theft. This case has actually become a political lightning rod in California because investigators actually found a single 3-story office building in LA, excuse me, that had 89 different hospice companies registered to it. There's no way all 89 companies are there. They're using it for brick and mortar just to cover up their scheme. This is known as clustering to hide the fraud so that it looked like a legitimate business. But 89 businesses sharing the same building is insane. Dr. Mehmet Oz, currently the CMS administrator, was physically present at the San Dimas raid. He actually announced that the feds have taken out 221 fraudulent hospices in the last 10 weeks alone. So, for y'all folks in California that are watching, I hope you're not on this list because they are coming. 221 in 10 weeks is busy, busy, busy. These ladies and gentlemen of the feds are not sleeping, and they are taking you down. Acting U.S. Attorney Bill Esselstyn used a press conference that he recently had to criticize California state leadership. Of course, it's going to come down to politics, claiming that the state has been asleep at the wheel while hospice mills have proliferated. This is a case of, for all of you that are studying law, that know law, implied false certification theory. And this is under the False Claims Act. By submitting a claim for payment, the hospice is impliedly certifying that they are following Medicare's terminal illness requirements, which they clearly were not. So, as you guys see, the feds are busy. Lots going on. Before I wrap up, because for my hip hop culture, y'all, I literally thought this was April Fool's when I saw this, but apparently this happened January 10th of this year. And like they say, when the feds got you, they got you. Let me drink something on this one. My coffee, not nothing else. So, apparently, Gucci Mane went to Dallas, Texas with some of his business associates. For those of you guys that don't know, Pooh Shiesty was signed to his record label, 1017 Records, a few years back. Well, Pooh Shiesty's been incarcerated since 2022, but he got out early in 2025, but was under supervised release, like still at the house, still seeing your PO or whatever. It just wasn't enough. Like, this dude literally just got out right before Christmas, and we are now in April. And it was everywhere on April Fool's Day that Gucci Mane was kidnapped, held at gunpoint, and robbed. And I'm like, okay, that's nothing. Well, upon further investigation, Gucci, being from Atlanta, went out there, and federal prosecutors in the Northern District of Texas, because this happened in Dallas, Gucci thought he was going in for a meeting. Pooh Shiesty and his daddy pulled a gun out on Gucci. Some of Pooh Shiesty's other people had Gucci Mane to sign something. It looked like it was basically releasing Pooh Shiesty from the contract. Then they robbed him of his jewelry and some cash that he had. So that was January 10th. It took the feds less than 90 days to bring that indictment. And since Pooh Shiesty's under supervision, he's going back. There's no way he beats this. Now, his dad did post a $250,000 cash bond, and he's at home on house arrest. I don't know how he got a bond on a federal offense, because they're saying that his dad was the mastermind. Lontrell Williams Sr., along with Big 30, another rapper, Rodney Wright Jr. Um, I mean, Gucci Mane, of course, Radrick Davis. Um, it was all a business meeting, according to him, but this was labeled as an ambush and an armed takeover. Prosecutors are alleging that Pooh Shiesty brandished an AK-style firearm and forced Gucci Mane to sign the release from his recording contract at gunpoint. While Gucci was at gunpoint, some of his other constituents, it's not even constituents, y'all, that's political. Some of Pooh Shiesty's other folk robbed Gucci and his people of money, Rolex watches, and even took Gucci Mane's wedding ring that Keisha Kayor, his wife, got him, and a Louis Vuitton bag containing a wallet with a tracking device. So they want to make sure he wasn't even, there. One victim was actually reportedly choked, nearly unconscious in this ambush. 8 of the 9 suspects were arrested on April 1st, following FBI raids in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. Pooh Shiesty's father, like they said, he actually had some type of plan with this. And so this is specific intent within a federal jurisdiction. Because this crime actually happened involving a recording contract, which is interstate commerce, because all, Gucci's everywhere, and it happened in a place of business, federal prosecutors are pursuing conspiracy to commit kidnapping, which carries a potential life sentence. So from a contract law perspective, y'all know the fact that Gucci unreleased him or released him from his contract under duress, which would be the gun being out, is void because Gucci would not have signed that without being in fear for his life. So that's going to be null and void. Despite the legal chaos surrounding this label, Gucci has a busy tour schedule coming up and starts touring in Gary, Indiana on May 16th. And so then his birthday bash is the week after that. But I mean, this is very wild, being a victim of his own signees and with such a violent takeover. But guys, that's all I have for today. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend and holiday tomorrow. Make sure you guys join us tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. for the Sunday morning sports show. And throughout, McGrath Podcast Network has shows for movie lovers, for sports lover, and everything in between. And with that, I will bid you guys all good day, and I will see you guys on next Wednesday. Be blessed.